When a first-year resident was called incompetent and escorted out by security, no one knew a Black Hawk helicopter would land 30 minutes later, demanding her return. For more stories like this, subscribe to Emergency Heroes Stories. The surgical lights hummed overhead at 3:17 a.m. Dr. Maya Reeves tied off the final suture and stepped back from the table. The appendectomy had taken 42 minutes. Standard time was 90. Her hands moved with mechanical precision, each motion economical, practiced in environments where seconds meant survival. The scrub nurse stared at the closure. "Those sutures," she said quietly. "I've never seen that pattern." Maya stripped off her gloves. "Just a technique I picked up." "From where?" Maya didn't answer. She was already reviewing the post-op checklist in her head, compartmentalizing, moving to the next task. Her eyes scanned the room once, cataloging exits. A habit she couldn't break. The OR doors swung open. Dr. Richard Vance entered, chief of surgery, silver hair perfectly styled even at this hour. His Harvard class ring caught the light as he approached the table. He examined the incision site, leaning close, then straightened. "Dr. Reeves." "Sir, where did you learn to suture like this?" Maya kept her voice level. "I study extensively." Vance touched his ring, rotating it slowly. "This isn't standard surgical technique. These are interrupted sutures, military style, battlefield medicine. I've reviewed a lot of different approaches. Cornell undergrad, Johns Hopkins Medical School." Vance recited her credentials from memory. "Excellent pedigree, but there's a 6-year gap in your resume before residency. What were you doing during that time?" The room felt smaller. Maya met his eyes. "Personal development. Personal development." Vance's tone carried skepticism. "You operate with the efficiency of someone who's done this 1,000 times, not someone 6 weeks into residency." "I prepare thoroughly, Dr. Vance." He studied her for a long moment. His gaze dropped to her right forearm, covered by her surgical gown sleeve despite the heat in the OR. She'd been careful. Always long sleeves, always covered. "Just follow the protocols we teach here, Dr. Reeves, not whatever unorthodox methods you picked up during your personal development." "Understood." Vance left. The door swung shut behind him. Maya exhaled slowly. The scrub nurse was still watching her. "You okay?" "Fine." But her hands were steady. They were always steady, even when everything inside her wasn't. She pulled off her surgical cap. Dark blonde hair fell loose from the tight bun, damp with sweat. The scar along her left jawline was visible now, a pale line she usually covered with makeup during daylight hours. At this hour, she didn't bother. The patient was wheeled to recovery. Maya stripped out of her gown and walked to the scrub room. Cold water ran over her hands. She watched it spiral down the drain, counting her breaths. 4 in, 6 out. The rhythm they'd taught her for staying calm under fire. She caught her reflection in the mirror. Ice blue eyes stared back, calculating, measuring distances even here, in safety. Except nowhere felt safe anymore. Not after Kandahar. Not after the court-martial. Not after she'd walked away from everything she'd known for 8 years. Her sleeve had ridden up slightly. Numbers were visible on her forearm. Coordinates. Just the edge of them. The beginning of a full sleeve tattoo she kept hidden. 12 sets of coordinates. 12 missions where she'd brought someone back from the edge. Intertwined with medical symbols only another combat surgeon would recognize. She yanked the sleeve down. "Dr. Reeves?" A resident appeared in the doorway. Young, maybe 26, fresh out of medical school, still excited about surgery. "Yeah?" "Dr. Vance wants you on another case. Gallbladder, routine. Patient prepped in OR 3. "Got it." The resident hesitated. "Hey, I saw your appendectomy closure. That was incredible. How did you learn to work that fast?" Maya grabbed a towel, dried her hands. "Practice." "But where? I mean, no offense, but you're a first year like me. And I can barely keep up with standard procedures." "Everyone learns at their own pace." She moved past him into the hallway. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead. The hospital was quieter now. That dead zone between late-night trauma and early morning rounds. Her footsteps echoed on linoleum. OR 3 was prepped. The patient, a woman in her 50s, was, as already under anesthesia. Maya reviewed the chart. Acute cholecystitis, elevated white count, pain in the right upper quadrant for 3 days. Textbook gallbladder. Except, Maya checked the vitals. Heart rate elevated, blood pressure slightly low, respirations shallow. She examined the abdomen through the surgical drape. Left side tender, not right. "Get me an ultrasound," she said to the surgical tech. "It's just a gallbladder. Get me an ultrasound." The tech hesitated, then complied. Maya ran the probe over the patient's abdomen. There. Fluid in the left upper quadrant. Free fluid around the spleen. "This isn't cholecystitis," Maya said quietly. "This is splenic rupture masquerading as gallbladder pain. She's bleeding internally." The anesthesiologist looked up. "Vitals are stable. They won't be for long. We need to convert this to an exploratory lap, now." The doors opened. Dr. Vance entered, surprised. "Dr. Reeves, what's the delay?" "Sir, this patient has a splenic rupture. She needs immediate intervention." Vance walked to the table, reviewed the chart. "The diagnosis is acute cholecystitis, confirmed by CT scan yesterday. The CT was wrong, or she's had a delayed rupture since then. Look at the ultrasound." Vance glanced at the screen. "That's artifact. You're a first year, Dr. Reeves. Don't diagnose above your pay grade." "Dr. Vance, with respect. One more word and you're off this case." His voice was ice. "Proceed with the gallbladder removal. Standard protocol." Maya's jaw tightened. The room watched her. The anesthesiologist, the surgical tech, 2 nurses, all waiting to see if she'd push back. She looked at the patient, 53 years old, 2 adult children listed as emergency contacts. Someone's mother. "Scalpel," Maya said. The tech handed it to her. Maya made the first incision for the laparoscopic port. Standard placement, standard technique, but her eyes kept flicking to the monitor, watching the patient's pressure. It was 5:23 a.m. when everything changed. If you want to see what happens when gut instinct collides with protocol, make sure you subscribe. Comment below. Have you ever had to hide who you really are? Because what Dr. Maya Reeves does in the next few minutes will leave you speechless. The resident break room smelled like burnt coffee and exhaustion. 2 surgical residents sat in the corner, voices low, but not low enough. Maya passed the doorway, catching fragments of conversation. "Did you see Reeves's appendectomy closure? 42 minutes. Lucky guess on the technique. Nobody gets that fast in 6 weeks. She's probably been studying surgical videos all night. You don't learn to suture like that from videos." Maya kept walking. Let them talk. She'd heard worse. In Kandahar, they'd called her the Ice Queen. In Baghdad, they'd called her the Reaper because she refused to let anyone die on her table. Names didn't matter. Results did. She found an empty call room and sat on the narrow bed. Her right forearm ached. The tattoo sometimes did that. Phantom pain where ink met memory. She rolled up her sleeve in the privacy of the locked room. 12 sets of coordinates ran from wrist to elbow, intertwined with caduceus symbols and EKG line patterns. Each number marked a place where she'd perform surgery under impossible conditions. Each symbol represented a life saved when protocol said to move on, to triage, to let go. The last coordinate was Kandahar, the one that ended everything. She traced it with her left index finger. 31.617 degrees north, 65.717 degrees east. 6 children in a market. 2 soldiers who'd covered her while she worked. A commanding officer who'd ordered her to leave them all behind. She disobeyed. The children lived. The soldiers died. Not from enemy fire. She knew that now. But she hadn't known it during the court-martial. Hadn't known it when they'd stripped her of command. Hadn't known it when she'd signed the discharge papers and walked away from 8 years of service. She rolled the sleeve back down. Her pager buzzed. Another case. She was the only first year getting back-to-back surgeries. But that's what happened when you were good, and the attendings were too tired to handle routine procedures themselves. Dr. Vance stood outside OR 3 when she arrived. His expression was unreadable. "The gallbladder case," he said. Maya's stomach tightened. "Yes, sir. I reviewed your ultrasound images after you left." He paused. "You were correct. Splenic rupture. Delayed presentation from a fall. Else she took 4 days ago. The family just told us about it. Is she stable? For now, I'm converting it to an exploratory laparotomy. You'll assist." "Understood." Vance studied her. "How did you know?" "The pain pattern was wrong. Vitals were compensating. I've seen internal bleeding present like that before." "Where?" Maya met his eyes. Medical journals, case studies. He didn't believe her. She could see it in the way his hand went to his Harvard ring, rotating it slowly, A tell. He did it when he was processing information that didn't fit his expectations. Scrub in, he said finally. The surgery took 2 hours. The spleen was shattered, bleeding into the abdominal cavity. Vance worked methodically. But Maya saw inefficiencies, moments where her hands itched to take over, to move faster, to control bleeding with techniques she'd learned when mortar rounds were falling outside the surgical tent. She stayed quiet, followed orders, retracted when told, suctioned when needed. But Vance noticed. You disagree with my approach. No, sir. Your body language says otherwise. Maya kept her eyes on the surgical field. Just focused, sir. He ligated another bleeder. If you have a better method, speak up. This is a teaching hospital. She hesitated. Then, the splenic artery. If you clamp it proximally first, you reduce blood loss before mobilization. That's advanced technique. It's efficient technique. Vance paused, instruments hovering. Then he repositioned, following her suggestion. The bleeding slowed immediately. He glanced at her across the table. Where did you really learn to operate, Dr. Reeves? I told you. I study. Extensively. Yes. His tone was dry. That's becoming less convincing each time you say it. The patient's pressure stabilized. Vance completed the splenectomy without further complications. Post-op, the woman was transferred to ICU in stable condition. Maya stripped off her gown in the scrub room. Vance entered behind her, still in his surgical cap. 6 weeks into residency, he said, you've already performed at a third-year level. Your suture techniques are unorthodox but flawless. You identify complications before senior residents. You move like someone who's done this in your sleep. Maya dried her hands. I work hard. Everyone here works hard. You work like you're running from something. She turned to face him. Doctor, Vance, is there a problem with my performance? No, that's what concerns me. He moved closer. Your application. Cornell, Johns Hopkins, excellent recommendations. But that 6-year gap between medical school and residency. Most people don't wait that long. They go straight through. I had personal reasons. What reasons? Private ones. His jaw tightened. I run this surgical department. I need to know who's operating in my ORs. If you have some kind of history. I have no malpractice issues, no disciplinary actions. My credentials are valid. Everything else is personal. Dr. Reeves. The overhead speaker crackled. Trauma alert. Multiple casualties. ETA 4 minutes. All available surgical staff to the ER. Vance's attention snapped to the speaker, then back to Maya. We're not done with this conversation. Understood. They moved quickly through the corridors. Other residents converged from different wings. The ER was already transforming into controlled chaos. Nurses setting up trauma bays. Respiratory therapists standing by with intubation kits. The charge nurse called out. Construction site collapse. Steel beam fell. 8 critical. 3 DOA. Multiple impalement injuries. Crush wounds. Possible internal bleeding. Maya's heart rate didn't change. This she knew. This was muscle memory. The first ambulance arrived. Paramedics wheeled in a patient. Young man, maybe 23. A steel beam protruded from his abdomen. His face was gray, lips blue. The lead paramedic was shouting vitals. BP 60/40. Pulse 130 and thready. GCS ache. Multiple penetrating trauma. Rebar explosion at the site caused fragmentation injuries. Maya moved closer. The injury pattern. She'd seen it before. Not in construction accidents. In war zones. IED fragments created specific trauma signatures. Rebar explosion fragments looked identical. The way metal shredded tissue, the scatter pattern, the secondary projectile injuries. The lead paramedic locked eyes with her. He was mid-20s, muscular build, moved with military precision. His uniform patch said Okoye, but it was his face that made her. Referees. She knew him. Sergeant James Okoye, Army Reserve medic. She'd trained him. She'd saved his life in Kandahar, when shrapnel had torn through his leg and he'd been bleeding out in a ditch. His eyes widened. Wait. Maya looked away, pulling her surgical mask higher. Those hands, Okoye said, staring. That technique when you checked the patient. I know that technique. Dr. Vance was assigning cases, rapid fire. Richards, take the chest trauma in Bay 2. Morrison, abdominal crush in Bay 3. Reeves, you get the leg fracture in Bay 4. The patient with the steel beam through his abdomen was wheeled to Bay 1. Okoye hadn't moved. He was still staring at Maya. Kandahar, he said quietly. You were in Kandahar. Maya's voice was barely audible. You're mistaken. I never forget a face. Never forget hands that saved my life. Vance turned. Is there a problem? Okoye hesitated. Then, no sir, no problem. But he kept watching Maya as she moved to Bay 4, and she knew her carefully constructed civilian identity was beginning to crack. Bay 4 held a man with a compound femur fracture, bone visible through torn skin, but stable vitals. Painful, yes. Life-threatening, no. Maya's eyes kept drifting to Bay 1. The patient with the impalement. Marcus Delgado, according to the chart someone had clipped to the foot of his gurney. 23 years old. The steel beam was still lodged in his abdomen, protruding 8 inches. Standard protocol. Don't remove impaled objects until surgical control is established. But something was wrong. The senior resident assigned to him, Dr. Chen, was reviewing scans with Vance. Their voices carried across the ER. Beam penetrated the peritoneum. Probable liver laceration. Possible bowel perforation. We need to get him to OR immediately. Vance studied the monitor. Agreed. Prep OR 1. Maya set the femur fracture patient's leg in temporary stabilization. The orthopedic team would handle surgical pinning later. She moved toward Bay 1, drawn by instinct she couldn't name. Marcus Delgado's skin was gray, lips cyanotic, breathing shallow and rapid. His eyes were half open, unfocused. She checked his pupils, reactive but sluggish. She palpated his abdomen around the impalement site, feeling for rigidity, for distension patterns. There, left upper quadrant, firm, distended slightly more than right side. She looked at the monitor, heart rate climbing, blood pressure dropping slowly, steadily, not the precipitous crash of acute hemorrhage, the gradual decline of something else. Dr. Reeves. She turned. Vance stood behind her. Your patient is stabilized. Yes, sir. Ortho is taking over. Then you're dismissed. Get some rest. Maya didn't move. Dr. Vance, has anyone checked for splenic involvement? Chen looked up from his tablet. The beam didn't penetrate that high. CT shows liver and possible bowel. The beam didn't need to penetrate directly. The force of impact could have caused splenic rupture. His left upper quadrant is rigid. Vance's expression hardened. Dr. Reeves, you've been on shift for 16 hours. You're seeing complications that aren't there. I'm seeing a pattern. What pattern? Maya hesitated, because the pattern she recognized wasn't from construction accidents. It was from blast injuries, from IEDs that threw bodies against walls and ruptured organs without external penetration. From soldiers who'd walked away from explosions, only to collapse 20 minutes later, from internal bleeding no one had anticipated. Delayed rupture from blunt force trauma, she said carefully. The rebar explosion at the site. He could have been thrown by the blast wave before the beam impaled him. Chen shook his head. We're already taking him to surgery for the impalement. We'll address anything else they find. By then, it might be too late. Vance stepped closer. His voice dropped. Dr. Reeves, you're a first-year resident. Dr. Chen has been doing this for 4 years. Trust his assessment. His assessment is missing something. Enough. Vance's tone went cold. You're off this case. That's an order. Maya looked at Marcus Delgado. His breathing was getting shallower, pressure dropping another 2 points while they argued. She could walk away, follow orders, keep her head down like she'd promised herself when she'd entered civilian medicine. No more command decisions. No more override authority. No more court-martials. But the kid was dying. Dr. Vance, request permission to observe the surgery. Denied. You're dismissed. Okoye appeared at her elbow. He'd been standing just outside the bay, listening. Sir, if I may. At the scene, there was a secondary explosion. Rebar fragments scattered. Multiple patients were thrown by the blast before the beam collapsed. Dr. Reeves might be right about blunt force trauma. Vance studied Okoye. You're the paramedic who brought him in? Yes, sir. Army Reserve medic. I've seen blast injuries before. Glanced at Maya. Trained by some of the best. Vance's hand went to his Harvard ring, rotating, processing. Fine, Dr. Reeves, you can observe. But you don't touch anything unless Dr. Chen requests assistance. Clear? Clear. They prepped Marcus for transport. Maya scrubbed in, staying silent as Chen reviewed the surgical plan. Standard exploratory laparotomy. Control bleeding from liver laceration. Remove the beam under direct visualization. Repair any bowel perforation. No mention of the spleen. OR1 was cold. Maya took her position across from Chen, hands ready but still. Vance stood in the observation gallery above, watching through glass. Chen made the midline incision. Retractors spread. Suction cleared blood pooling in the peritoneal cavity. Significant hemoperitoneum, Chen noted. Liver laceration confirmed. Grade 3, maybe 4. He worked methodically, competent, by the book, but not fast enough. Maya watched the monitors, heart rate climbing, pressure still dropping despite 2 units of blood running. Dr. Chen, a bleeding isn't just from the liver. I can see that, Dr. Reeves. He packed the liver, applied pressure. Bleeding slowed but didn't stop. Source must be deeper. I'm going to remove the beam. Wait. Maya's voice was sharp. Check the spleen first. The spleen is fine. You haven't visualized it yet. Chen's jaw tightened. Dr. Reeves, you're here to observe. She fell silent, watched him grasp the protruding beam, begin to ease it out. Slowly, carefully. The beam shifted. Something tore. Blood flooded the surgical field. Damn it. Chen's hands moved faster, suction clearing, trying to find the source. It's the hepatic artery. The beam must have been tamponating a complete laceration. He clamped, missed. Blood kept coming. Pressure's dropping. 80/50. I see it. I'm trying to. 60/40. Chen's hands were shaking now, just slightly. Enough. Maya's hands weren't. Dr. Chen, let me. I've got it. But he didn't. The surgical field was filling faster than suction could clear. He couldn't see, couldn't clamp what he couldn't visualize. The monitor alarm shrieked. Pressures 40/20, heart rate 160. Get another unit of ONEG, now. The anesthesiologist called from the head of the table. We're losing him. Chen tried another clamp. Slipped. Blood everywhere. Maya saw it all in slow motion. The trajectory of failure. The precise moment when protocol stopped being enough. And experience became the only thing that mattered. Vance's voice came through the intercom from the gallery. Dr. Chen, status. I'm controlling the bleeding, sir. But he wasn't. Marcus Delgado was dying on the table, and everyone in the room knew it. 30/15. The flatline tone began. Not complete. Not yet, but the beginning of it. The sound Maya had heard too many times. The sound that still woke her at night. She looked up at Vance through the glass. Their eyes met. Dr. Chen, Vance said quietly. Step aside. Chen froze. Sir, I can. Step aside. Dr. Reeves, you're in. The room went silent, except for alarms. Maya didn't hesitate. She moved to primary position, hands entering the surgical field. Her voice was different now. Command voice, the one she'd used in field hospitals when there was no time for explanations. Suction here. Hack the liver completely. I need manual pressure on the aorta, now. The surgical tech responded instantly to her tone. Maya's hands moved inside the abdomen. Not searching, knowing. She'd done this exact procedure 43 times in combat. Liver laceration with hepatic artery involvement, complicated by splenic rupture from blunt force trauma. Retractor. Deeper. There. I can see it now. Her fingers found the torn artery, clamped it, properly this time. The bleeding slowed. Spleens ruptured, just like I said. That's your secondary source. She worked faster now. Tied off the hepatic artery. Began splenectomy, with movements that looked choreographed. Economical. Precise. No wasted motion. Ocean. Chen stared. How are you? Quiet. The monitor stabilized. Pressure climbing. 40/25. 50/30. Maya removed the spleen, checked for additional bleeders, found none. She irrigated the abdomen, closed the liver laceration with sutures that moved like machine stitching. Fast. Impossibly fast. The scrub nurse whispered, Jesus. 14 minutes after she'd taken over, Maya stepped back. He's stable. Close him up. The room stared at her. Chen, the nurses, the anesthesiologist, even the surgical tech who'd been doing this for 20 years looked shaken. Vance's voice came through the intercom. Dr. Reeves, my office, now. Maya stripped off her surgical gown in silence. The OR was still quiet behind her. Chen had taken over the closure, hands moving mechanically, face pale. She scrubbed out, cold water over her hands, counting breaths again. 4 in, 6 out. The door opened. Okoye stood there, still in his paramedic uniform. "That was you," he said. "In Kandahar, I knew it." Maya dried her hands. "I don't know what you're talking about." "My leg. Shrapnel tore through my femoral artery. I was bleeding out in a ditch. You came out of nowhere, put your hands inside my leg, and clamped the artery with your fingers while mortars were falling. Held it for 8 minutes until we got to the field hospital. You're mistaken. I never forget the person who saved my life." His voice was quiet, but certain. "You had the same look then, the same hands. You moved exactly like that." Maya met his eyes. "If you're right, then you know I left for a reason, and you know not to talk about it." Okoye nodded slowly. "Understood. But that kid in there, Marcus, he's a Marine, Afghanistan vet. Just like you saved me, you saved him. I'm just a resident." "No, ma'am, you're not." He left. Maya walked through empty corridors toward Vance's office. Early morning light was starting to filter through windows. The shift change would happen soon. New faces, new questions. Vance's door was open. He sat behind his desk, still in surgical scrubs, Harvard ring rotating on his finger. He didn't look up when she entered. "Close the door." She did. "Sit." Maya remained standing. Old habit. Never sit when you might need to move quickly. Vance finally looked at her. 6 weeks into residency. "You just performed a trauma surgery that most fourth years couldn't handle. You identified complications 2 senior residents missed. You operated with a speed and precision I've only seen in surgeons with decades of experience." Maya said nothing. "Your sutures are military style. Your technique for controlling hepatic artery bleeding is straight out of combat surgery protocols. You move like someone who's done this under fire." He leaned forward. "So I'm going to ask you one more time, Dr. Reeves. Where did you really learn to operate?" The moment hung there. Maya could lie again, deflect again, keep the walls up like she'd been doing for 6 years. Or she could tell the truth. Before she could answer, the overhead speaker crackled. Code red, mass casualty incident. All available personnel to ER. Repeat, mass casualty incident. Vance's eyes didn't leave hers. "We're not done. People are dying. They can wait 30 seconds for you to answer my question." The speaker continued. "Construction site, secondary collapse, multiple critical. ETA 2 minutes. Maya's jaw tightened. "With respect, sir, no, they can't." She turned and walked out. Vance followed. The ER was transforming into organized chaos again. More trauma bays being set up. Portable X-ray machines wheeled into position. The charge nurse was already triaging based on radio reports from incoming ambulances. "We've got 8 more critical. 4 with crush injuries, 2 with penetrating trauma, 2 with severe burns from electrical equipment." Maya grabbed a gown. Vance caught her arm. "Dr. Reeves, when this is over, I know." The first ambulance arrived, then the second, then 3 more in rapid succession. Paramedics wheeled in patients on gurneys, voices overlapping with vitals and injury reports. The ER filled with the controlled chaos Maya knew too well. Organized pandemonium. Life and death decided in seconds. A gurney rushed past. Young woman, early 20s, right arm crushed, bone visible, bleeding heavily. Bay 6, crushing injury, possible amputation needed. Another gurney. Middle-aged man, chest trauma, labored breathing. Bay 3, pneumothorax, needs chest tube immediately. Maya. You moved toward Bay 3. Vance was already assigning cases rapid fire. "Morrison, take the crush injury. Richards, handle the pneumothorax. Chen, you've got the burn patient in Bay 4. More patients arrived. One gurney moved differently than the others. Slower. The paramedics' faces were grim. The patient was covered in blood. A piece of rebar protruded from his chest. His skin was gray. Eyes closed. The lead paramedic was calling out vitals, but his tone said everything. 30-year-old male, penetrating chest trauma, hypotensive, thready pulse. He arrested once in the ambulance. We got him back, but..." He trailed off. Vance looked at the patient, then at the monitor showing barely detectable vitals. "Get him to Bay 1. We'll try, but..." "He's already gone," Chen said quietly, looking at the monitor. Maya was already moving toward the gurney. She looked at the injury. The rebar had entered just left of the sternum. Angle suggested it had missed the heart, but possibly torn the pulmonary artery or caused cardiac tamponade. "He's not gone." Vance turned. Dr. Reeds, his pressure is barely registering. Then we don't have time to argue. Maya grabbed the gurney, started wheeling it toward OR1. Someone prep the room, now. Dr. Reeves, stop. She didn't. Vance's voice rose. That's an order, doctor. Maya kept moving. If we wait for him to be pronounced, he dies. If we move now, maybe he doesn't. You can't just. Okoye stepped forward. Sir, I've seen her bring back patients with worse injuries, in conditions a lot worse than this. Vance stared at him. What? That patient has the same injury pattern as an IED victim. Penetrating chest trauma with probable great vessel involvement. If anyone here can save him, it's her. The ER had gone quiet, everyone watching. Vance looked from Okoye to Maya to the patient whose monitor was showing a heart rate of 40 and dropping. His hand went to his ring, rotating, calculating. You have 10 minutes, he said finally. If you can't stabilize him in 10 minutes, we call it. Maya was already through the OR doors. This story is just getting started. Subscribe and hit the bell because you won't believe what happens next. Drop a comment. Have you ever had to break the rules to do the right thing? The surgical team scrambled to pret. Maya scrubbed in 30 seconds flat. No time for the standard 5-minute scrub. Combat protocols now. The patient was prepped and draped by the time she entered. Scalpel. The tech handed it to her. Maya made a median sternotomy incision. Fast, precise. The kind of cut that meant she'd done this exact procedure dozens of times. Retractors spread the chest. Blood poured out. Suction. Cardiac tamponade confirmed. He's got maybe 3 minutes before complete arrest. Her hands moved inside his chest, not searching. Knowing. She evacuated blood from the pericardial sac, released pressure on the heart. The monitor jumped. Heart rate climbed to 60. There. Pulmonary artery laceration. Small Richardson retractor. She visualized the tear. Clean edges. Rebar had sliced through but not completely severed the vessel. Repairable. Maybe. Clamp. Suture. 4-0 prolin. Her hands moved like she was playing an invisible piano. Each motion precise. Each stitch placed exactly where it needed to be. The surgical nurse stared. I've been assisting for 15 years. I've never seen anyone suture that fast. Maya didn't respond. Focused completely on the vessel. 3 stitches. 4. 5. Remove clamp. The tech complied. Blood flow restored. No leak. Pressures rising. 70/50. Maya checked for additional injuries. Found none. Irrigated the chest. Started closing. She glanced at the clock. 8 minutes 40 seconds since they'd entered the OR. The patient's heart rate was stable. Pressure climbing. Color returning to his face. Chen stood in the doorway. Eyes wide. How did you? That's impossible. Maya tied off the final suture. Get him to ICU. He'll need close monitoring for the next 24 hours. But prognosis is good. She stepped back from the table. The room was silent except for the steady beep of the monitor. Life. Continuing. Because someone had refused to give up. Vance stood in the doorway now too. His expression was unreadable. Dr. Reeves, my office, now. And this time, you're going to tell me everything. The surgical corridor was empty now. Just Maya and Vance walking in silence. Their footsteps echoed off linoleum floors, through windows. Ao's dawn light was breaking over the city, painting everything in shades of gold and gray. Vance's office was sparse. Diplomas on the wall. Harvard Medical School. Massachusetts General Residency. A shelf of surgical textbooks. A photo of him shaking hands with the Surgeon General. He closed the door behind him. Maya remained standing. Her surgical scrubs were spotted with blood. Her hands were steady at her sides, but her jaw was tight. Vance sat behind his desk. He didn't speak immediately, just studied her with the same intensity he used to examine imaging scans, looking for details others missed. Finally, I've been chief of surgery for 12 years. I've trained over 200 residents. I can spot talent on day one. He leaned forward. You're not talented, Dr. Reeves. You're something else entirely. Maya said nothing. 6 weeks into residency, and you're performing at a level most surgeons never reach. Your technique is flawless but unconventional. You identify complications before they become critical. You operate with a speed that suggests muscle memory built over years, not months. He stood, walked to the window. So I started looking into your background more carefully. Cornell undergrad, summa cum laude. Johns Hopkins Medical School, top of your class. Then nothing. 6 years of nothing. No residency applications. No research publications. No clinical work. He turned back to face her. People don't just disappear for 6 years and come back operating like you do. Maya's voice was quiet. I had personal obligations. What kind of obligations? Private ones. Vance's hand went to his Harvard ring. Your sutures are military style, interrupted technique designed for battlefield conditions where speed matters more than aesthetics. Your approach to trauma follows combat casualty protocols. You triaged Marcus Delgado's injuries like someone who's done mass casualty response. He walked closer. That paramedic, Okoye. He said he's seen you bring back patients with worse injuries in worse conditions. He said you trained him. He called you ma'am with a tone that suggested rank, not courtesy. Maya met his eyes but didn't speak. Earlier, when your sleeve rode up, I saw ink on your forearm. Numbers. Before you covered it, I saw enough to recognize coordinates. Military grid coordinates. His voice dropped. So I'm going to ask you directly, and I want the truth. Are you, or were you, military? The question hung in the air. Maya had rehearsed deflections for 6 years. Had practiced evasions until they felt natural. Had built walls between her past and present so carefully that no one should have been able to see through them. But she was tired. Tired of hiding. Tired of pretending competence was luck. Tired of watching patients die because protocol mattered more than results. She took a breath. Yes. Vance's expression didn't change. What branch? Army. Medical Corps. Rank? Captain. How long? 8 years. 3 tours. Afghanistan twice. Iraq once. The words felt strange. She hadn't said them aloud in 6 years. Hadn't claimed that identity since the day she'd signed discharge papers and walked away from everything she'd known. Vance sat back down. Why didn't you disclose this on your residency application? Because I didn't want to be defined by it. That's not a complete answer. Maya's jaw tightened. Because I left under circumstances that complicated my ability to practice. Because I wanted to learn civilian medicine without the weight of command decisions. Because some doors close for good reasons. What circumstances? Before she could answer, someone knocked on the door. Sharp, urgent. Vance called out. Not now. The door opened anyway. A hospital security officer stood there, breathing hard. Dr. Vance, we have a situation. There's a military officer downstairs demanding to speak with someone named Captain Reeves. He says it's urgent. National security level. Maya's blood went cold. Vance looked at her. Captain Reeves? The security officer continued. He arrived with 2 MPs. Says he needs to speak with her immediately. I told him we don't have anyone by that name. But he insists she's here. He's threatening to search the hospital. Maya's mind raced. 6 years. She'd been out for 6 years. Honorable discharge. No recall clauses in her separation papers. They had no authority over her anymore. Unless something had changed. Vance stood. Tell him to wait. We'll be down in 5 minutes. The security officer hesitated. Sir, he was very insistent. 5 minutes. The officer left. Vance turned to Maya. What's this about? I don't know. Is this related to why you left? Maya's hands formed fists at her sides. Old reflex. Combat stance. Maybe. I don't know. Dr. Reeves, if you're in some kind of trouble? I'm not. I was discharged honorably. They have no claim on me. But even as she said it, doubt crept in. Because the Army didn't send MPs unless something was serious. National security level meant classified. Meant something had happened that required her specific expertise. Or meant someone had finally decided to review her court-martial and found something new. Vance was watching her carefully. What happened? Why did you really leave? Maya closed her eyes briefly. Kandahar. 6 years ago. I was assigned to a field hospital providing surgical support for special operations. We got a call about civilian casualties in a market. IED explosion. 6 children, critically wounded. She forced herself to continue. My commanding officer ordered me to stay at base. Said we couldn't risk medical personnel for civilians when we might need them for our own soldiers. I disobeyed. Took a medic team into the city. Vance listened without interrupting. We saved all 6 children, but while I was gone, our position was attacked. 2 soldiers died, defending the hospital entrance. My CO claimed they died because I wasn't there to provide immediate surgical care. That my disobedience cost American lives. Her voice dropped. They court-martialed me. Conduct unbecoming. Failure to follow orders. I accepted discharge rather than fight it, because I was tired. Tired of choosing who lives and dies based on nationality instead of need. But you were right to save those children. Tell that to the families of the 2 soldiers who died. Vance studied her for a long moment. What were their names? What? The soldiers who died. What were their names? Private Marcus Webb, Corporal Jennifer Hassan. And you remember them? I remember everyone. Vance walked to the door, opened it. Then let's go see what the military wants. But Dr. Reeves, whatever happens down there, you're under my authority in this hospital. They don't get to take you anywhere unless you agree. Understood? Maya nodded. They walked downstairs together. The main lobby was empty except for 3 figures in military uniform. A colonel stood in the center, silver eagles on his shoulders, Army Medical Corps insignia. 2 military police officers flanked him, hands near sidearms. The colonel's eyes locked on Maya. Captain Reeves. I'm not a captain anymore. I was discharged 6 years ago. I'm aware. I'm Colonel Patricia Hendricks, Army Medical Corps liaison. She glanced at Vance. Is there somewhere private we can speak? Vance stepped forward. Anything you need to say to Dr. Reeves can be said in front of me. I'm her supervising physician. Hendricks evaluated him. This concerns classified information. Then perhaps you shouldn't have come to a civilian hospital with MPs making threats. Hendricks's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her posture. Respect, maybe. Or recognition of someone who wouldn't be intimidated. Very well. Dr. Reeves. I'm not a captain anymore. I was discharged 6 years ago. I'm aware. I'm Colonel Patricia Hendricks, Army Medical Corps liaison. She glanced at Vance. Very well. Dr. Reeves. I'm not a captain anymore. I was discharged 6 years ago. I'm aware. I'm Colonel Patricia Hendricks, Army Medical Corps liaison. She glanced at Vance. Very well. Dr. Reeves. I'm Colonel Patricia Hendricks, Army Medical Corps liaison. She glanced at Vance. Very well. Dr. Reeves. I'm aware. I'm Colonel Patricia Hendricks, Army Medical Corps liaison. She glanced at Vance. Very well. Dr. Reeves. I'm not a captain anymore. I was discharged 6 years ago. I'm aware. I'm Colonel Patricia Hendricks, Army Medical Corps liaison. She glanced at Vance. Very well. Dr. Reeves. I'm aware. I'm Colonel Patricia Hendricks, Army Medical Corps liaison. Reeves, we have a situation. There's been an incident at a secure location requiring immediate surgical intervention. Specifically, it requires someone with your exact skill set. Combat trauma surgery, with experience in blast injuries and field operations. Maya's stomach tightened. There are dozens of combat surgeons still in service. Not with your record, and not available in the time frame we need. What time frame? Hendricks glanced at her watch. 30 minutes. Before Maya could respond, a sound cut through the morning air, distant at first, then growing louder, the unmistakable thump of helicopter rotors, getting closer. Hendricks looked at Maya. That would be your ride. A Black Hawk is landing on your hospital roof in approximately 90 seconds. You can come voluntarily, or I can invoke emergency military authority. But either way, Dr. Reeves, you're coming with us. The sound of rotor blades shook the windows. Patients in the lobby looked up, confused. Nurses rushed to calm them. The building itself seemed to vibrate with the approaching helicopter. Vance stepped between Maya and Hendricks. You can't just commandeer one of my residents. I can, and I am. Hendricks pulled a folded document from her jacket. Emergency military requisition. Session order. Signed by the Surgeon General. Dr. Reeves has skills critical to a time-sensitive situation. She's being activated under emergency authority. She's not active duty. The order supersedes her discharge status. Maya stared at the document. Official seal. Signatures. Legal language that meant she had no choice. 6 years. She'd been free for 6 years. Vance took the paper, scanned it. His jaw tightened. This is highly irregular. This is highly classified. Hendricks turned to Maya. Captain, we need to move. Maya's voice was cold. I told you, I'm not a captain. For the next 12 hours, you are. The helicopter was directly overhead now. The roar filled the lobby. Through the windows, they could see it descending toward the hospital roof, black against the morning sky. Maya looked at Vance. Something passed between them. An understanding that went beyond words. Go, he said quietly. But you come back. This hospital needs you. I don't have a choice. There's always a choice. He handed the document back to Hendricks. She goes voluntarily, or I call every news outlet in the city and make this very public. Your call, Colonel. Hendrix's expression remained neutral, but her eyes flicked to the MPs, then back to Vance. Dr. Reeves will be returned safely within 24 hours. 12, Vance said. 18. Agreed. Maya looked at both of them. I'm standing right here. Hendrix faced her. Will you come voluntarily? Every instinct Maya had spent 6 years developing screamed at her to refuse, to walk away, to maintain the boundary she'd fought so hard to establish between her military past and civilian present. But the helicopter on the roof meant someone was dying, someone with injuries that required her specific experience. And she'd never been able to walk away from that. What kind of injuries? I'll brief you en route. Tell me now. Hendrix hesitated. Then, multiple casualties, blast trauma, penetrating injuries with fragmentation patterns consistent with IED. The primary patient is critical. He's been down twice already. No surgeon in the area has your combination of combat experience and success rate with these specific injuries. Maya's mind cataloged the information. Multiple casualties meant she'd be triaging. Blast trauma meant complex internal injuries. IED fragmentation meant she'd be operating in a field surgical environment, probably mobile, probably without ideal equipment. Exactly what she'd been trained for. Exactly what she'd left behind. Fine, but I want something in return. You're not in a position to negotiate. Then you're not in a position to have my cooperation. Maya's voice was steel. I want my full military record, including the classified portions of my court-martial proceedings. And I want the real reason those soldiers died in Kandahar. Hendrix's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. That information is classified, I know. But if you want me to save whoever's dying right now, that's my price. Silence. The helicopter blades were slowing, settling on the roof, waiting. Hendrix pulled out a phone, stepped away, spoke in low tones for 30 seconds, then returned. Agreed. The files will be declassified and delivered to you upon mission completion. Before I operate. That's not before I operate. Maya's ice blue eyes were unblinking. Or you can fly your Black Hawk somewhere else. Another pause, another phone call. Fine. You'll have access to the files before beginning surgery. Maya nodded, turned to Vance. I'll be back. I know you will. She followed Hendrix toward the elevator that led to the roof. The MPs fell in stent behind them. Hospital staff watched, whispering, confused. Okoye appeared from a hallway. He met Maya's eyes as she passed, stood at attention, saluted. Maya returned it without thinking. Old muscle memory. The elevator rose. Hendrix stood beside her, silent. How bad is it really? Maya asked. Bad enough that we need you. Who's the patient? Classified until we're airborne. The elevator doors opened onto the roof. Wind from the helicopter blades whipped around them. The Black Hawk sat 30 feet away, rotors still spinning. A crew chief waved them forward. Maya crossed the helipad, climbed aboard. The familiar smell hit her immediately. Aviation fuel, canvas, the metallic tang that all military helicopters carried. She buckled in. Hendrix sat across from her. The MPs took positions near the door. The helicopter lifted. Maya watched the hospital shrink below them, watched the city spread out in morning light, felt the vibration of the rotors through her seat. She'd forgotten how much she missed this. No, she'd tried to forget. There was a difference. Hendrix handed her a tablet. Patient information, review it. Maya took the device. The screen showed a medical file. She scanned quickly. Male, 38 years old, blast trauma from IED. Multiple fragmentation injuries. Penetrating chest wound. Probable cardiac involvement. 2 cardiac arrests. Resuscitated both times but unstable. Estimated time remaining before irreversible damage. 45 minutes when the file was created. Maya checked the timestamp. 20 minutes ago. Where are we going? Forward operating base, 30 miles outside the city. The patient is a high-value asset. CIA operations officer embedded with special forces. He was injured during a classified operation. We need him alive, and we need him able to talk. Talk? He has a penetrating chest wound. Even if I save him, he'll be in ICU for... We need him conscious and verbal within 6 hours. Maya stared at her. That's medically impossible. That's why we need you, because you've done impossible before. The helicopter banked. Through the window, Maya saw they were heading toward restricted airspace. Military zone. She returned to the file, studied the injury scans. CT images showed the fragmentation pattern. Pieces of metal lodged near the heart, in the lung, along the chest wall. She'd seen this before. In Fallujah, in Kandahar, in a dozen other places where explosions turned human bodies into puzzles that had to be solved in minutes. But never with a requirement that the patient be conscious and talking within hours. Hendricks was watching her. "Can you do it?" Maya looked at the scans again, at the trajectory of the fragments, at the damage that had already been done. "I don't know. That's not the answer I need. It's the only honest one I have." The helicopter dropped altitude. Below, Maya could see the forward operating base, concrete barriers, guard towers, temporary structures, and a surgical tent, just like the ones she'd worked in for 8 years. They landed. Maya climbed out, keeping low under the rotors. Hendricks led her toward the tent. Inside, organized chaos, surgical equipment, monitors, a team of medics and nurses moving with controlled urgency around a table in the center. On the table, a man, gray skin, chest barely rising, monitor showing vitals that were barely compatible with life. A doctor looked up as Maya entered. Young, maybe 30, fear in his eyes. "Thank God. Are you Captain Reeves?" "I'm Dr. Reeves. He arrested again 2 minutes ago. We got him back, but he won't last much longer. We're out of options." Maya approached the table, looked at the patient, saw the same injury pattern from the scans, saw the slight movement of his chest that meant his heart was still trying. She rolled up her right sleeve. The coordinates tattooed on her forearm were visible now. All 12 of them. Every mission where she'd refused to let death win. "Prep him for thoracotomy. I'm going in." Hendricks stepped forward. "Dr. Reeves, before you begin, as promised." She handed Maya another tablet. "Your complete military file, including the classified Kandahar report." Maya took it. Her hands were steady, but her heart wasn't. She opened the file, read the first page, then the second. The words blurred, then crystallized into horrible clarity. The 2 soldiers who died in Kandahar, Private Marcus Webb and Corporal Jennifer Hassan. They hadn't died from lack of medical care. They'd died from friendly fire, specifically from their commanding officer, the same one who'd ordered Maya to abandon the civilians, the same one who'd court-martialed her. He'd shot them when they'd tried to report his involvement with a local weapons dealer, made it look like enemy action during the attack, blamed Maya's absence for the chaos that covered his crime. Maya looked up from the tablet. "He murdered then, and blamed me." Hendricks nodded. "He's in military prison now. Life sentence. The investigation concluded 8 months after your discharge. By then, you disappeared into civilian life. We've been trying to locate you to clear your record." The tent was silent, except for the beeping monitor. Maya looked at the dying man on the table, at the surgical instruments, at her hands. For 6 years, she'd carried guilt for 2 deaths she hadn't caused, had walked away from the only thing she'd ever been truly great at because she believed she'd failed. She'd been wrong. "Scalpel," Maya said. Her voice was different now. Clear, certain, not running anymore. The scalpel felt different in her hand now. Not heavier, lighter. Like the weight of 6 years had lifted and she could finally breathe again. Maya made the thoracotomy incision with the precision of someone who'd done it 100 times in worse conditions. The chest opened. Blood welled up, dark and thick. Suction. Retractor. "I need visualization on the heart." The young doctor assisted, his hands shaking slightly. Maya's weren't. She could see the fragments now. 3 pieces of shrapnel. One lodged in the pericardium, causing tamponade. Another embedded in the left lung. The third dangerously close to the left anterior descending artery. Any one of them could kill him. All 3 together should have already. "He's lucky," Maya said quietly. "Lucky?" The doctor's voice was incredulous. "The fragment near the LAD missed by 2 millimeters. That's not skill. That's luck." Her hands moved into the chest cavity. "Now we add skill to the luck." She worked methodically. First, evacuating blood from the pericardial sac. The heart was being compressed, unable to fill properly. That's why he kept arresting. The moment she released the pressure, the monitor changed. Heart rate jumped from 40 to 70. Better. Now let's make sure it stays that way. The fragment in the pericardium came out cleanly. She irrigated, checked for bleeding, found minimal damage. The heart muscle itself was bruised but intact. 1 down, 2 to go. The lung fragment was trickier. It had penetrated deep. lodged near the hilum where major vessels entered. One wrong move and he'd exsanguinate before she could control it. Maya's hands moved like she was defusing a bomb. Because she had diffused bombs 47 times, and the principle was the same. Slow, steady. Respect the danger, but don't fear it. She isolated the fragment, clamped the surrounding tissue, extracted it in one smooth motion. Air hissed from the lung puncture. Chest tube ready. He's got a pneumothorax now, but it's controlled. She placed the tube, inflated the lung, confirmed expansion on the portable X-ray. 2 down. The young doctor was staring at her. I've never seen anyone work that fast. You work in a field hospital long enough, fast becomes normal. Maya focused on the final fragment. The one near the LAD. The one that could still kill him if she slipped. She studied it from 3 angles, calculated trajectories, planned her approach like a chess master, thinking 5 moves ahead. Small Richardson, micro forceps. I need complete steady on the table. Everyone froze. Even breathing seemed to stop. Maya's fingers entered the surgical field, millimeter by millimeter. The forceps touched metal. She adjusted her grip, applied pressure. Steady, even. The fragment moved. The monitor shrieked. Bradycardia. The LAD was being compressed. Come on, Maya whispered. Just a little more. She shifted angle. Released pressure on the artery. The fragment came free. The monitor stabilized. Silence in the tent. Then, someone exhaled. Jesus Christ, the young doctor said. Maya irrigated the chest, checked for bleeders, found none. Close him up. Standard post-op protocols. He'll need monitoring, but he should be stable now. She stepped back from the table, pulled off her gloves. Hendricks approached. Time elapsed 38 minutes. The previous record for this type of surgery in field conditions was 90 minutes. Records don't matter, results do. The results are that you just saved a CIA operations officer who has intelligence on an imminent terrorist attack. Because of you, we might prevent another Kandahar. Maya looked at her. Another Kandahar? You mean another situation where command makes the wrong call and people die? I mean another market bombing. Another 6 children who might not have a surgeon willing to break rules to save them. The words landed. Maya walked to the edge of the surgical tent. Outside, the sun was fully up now. The forward operating base was coming to life. Soldiers moving between buildings. Helicopters on the tarmac. She'd forgotten what this felt like. The purpose, the clarity. Hendricks stood beside her. Your record has been cleared. Full exoneration. The court-martial verdict has been vacated. If you want, you could return. Ran to active duty. We'd reinstate you at major rank with full back pay. I have a residency. You have a choice. Hendricks pulled out another document. Or there's option 2, consulting position. You'd remain civilian, but work with Army Medical Corps to develop trauma protocols. Train surgeons in combat medicine techniques. Your terms, your schedule. Maya took the document, read it. Consulting trauma surgeon, hybrid military-civilian position. Authority to establish training programs. Full access to both military and civilian medical facilities. This position doesn't exist. It does now. We created it for you. Why? Because what you just did in 38 minutes would have taken anyone else twice as long and probably failed. Because you have skills and experience we can't replicate. Because soldiers are dying from injuries you know how to fix. Hendricks paused. And because 6 years ago, we failed you. This is how we make it right. Maya stared at the document, at the signature line at the bottom. Behind her, a patient was being prepped for transport. Stable, alive. Because she'd been there. I need to talk to someone first. Dr. Vance? Yes. Hendricks pulled out a satellite phone. He's been calling every 15 minutes since we left. I'll connect you. The phone rang twice. Dr. Reeves. Vance's voice was tight. Are you all right? I'm fine. The patient is stable. Good. Now get back here. You have rounds in 3 hours. Maya almost smiled. About that. I need to discuss something with you. She explained the consulting position, the training program, the hybrid role between military and civilian medicine. Vance was quiet for a long moment. You're telling me the Army wants you to teach our residents combat trauma techniques? Yes. And you'd still complete your residency? Modified track. Accelerated. But yes. Another pause. Dr. Reeves, 8 hours ago, I was ready to discipline you for insubordination. Now the United States Army is creating a position specifically for you, and I'm supposed to restructure our entire residency program to accommodate it. Yes, sir. This is highly irregular. So am I. She heard him exhale. Then, surprisingly, he laughed. Yes, you are. His tone shifted. All right, on one condition. You establish your trauma training program here, at this hospital. I want our residents learning from you. That's acceptable. And Dr. Reeves, the patient you saved earlier, Marcus Delgado, he woke up an hour ago, asked to thank the surgeon who operated on him. I told him you were dealing with an emergency. He said he'd wait. Said he knows what it's like to owe someone your life. Maya's throat tightened. Tell him I'll be back soon. I will. Now come home. You have work to do. The call ended. Maya handed the phone back to Hendricks, took the pen she offered, signed the document. When do I start? You already have. We need you to review 3 cases currently at Walter Reed, blast trauma patients who aren't responding to standard protocols. Then you'll brief our surgical teams on the techniques you just used. I need to get back to the hospital first. Agreed. The Black Hawk is fueled and ready. They walked toward the helicopter. The patient Maya had saved was being loaded onto a medical transport. Stable enough to move now. The young doctor who'd assisted approached. Major Reeves? Dr. Reeves. I'm civilian now. Either way, that was the most incredible surgery I've ever witnessed. Would it be possible to observe you again? Learn your techniques? Maya looked at him. Saw herself 8 years ago. Eager, terrified, determined to be good enough. What's your name? Lieutenant Marcus Chen. Related to Dr. Chen at Metropolitan General? My brother. He called me last night. Told me about a first-year resident who operated like she'd been doing it for decades. I didn't believe him until now. Maya smiled slightly. Tell your brother I'm sorry for making him step aside earlier. But tell him he's a good surgeon. Just needs more experience with combat trauma patterns. Will you teach him? That's the plan. The helicopter lifted off. Maya watched the forward operating base shrink below. Watched it disappear behind them as they flew back toward the city. Hendricks sat across from her. You made the right choice. I made the only choice I could live with. There's a difference between those two things. Not for me. They flew in silence for a while. Then Maya pulled out the tablet with her military file. Read through the complete Kandahar report. Every detail of what really happened. Every piece of evidence that proved she'd been right. 6 years of guilt. Gone. 6 years of running. Over. She looked at the coordinates tattooed on her arm. Touched the last one. Kandahar. Tonight she'd add a 13th. For the CIA officer. For choosing to come back. The helicopter descended toward Metropolitan General Hospital. Maya could see the building growing larger. Could see the ER entrance where ambulances were already waiting. Could see the life she'd built here. The life she'd tried to hide in. But she wasn't hiding anymore. The Black Hawk touched down on the roof. Maya climbed out. Vance was waiting by the roof access door. Welcome back, Major Reeves. It's Dr. Reeves, but thank you. Either way, you have patients waiting, and we need to discuss your new position. I have some ideas about the training program. Maya followed him toward the elevator. Behind her, the Black Hawk lifted off, returning to wherever it had come from. She didn't look back. 4 months later, the simulation lab at Metropolitan General Hospital looked different. Combat trauma equipment lined the walls. Portable surgical kits. Field monitors. Tourniquets and chest seals and supplies designed for environments where every second mattered and perfection was impossible. Maya stood at the front of the room. 8 surgical residents sat in rows before her, notebooks open, expressions ranging from nervous to skeptical. She recognized that look. She'd worn it herself once. Trauma surgery in civilian hospitals follows protocols designed for optimal conditions, Maya began. Sterile environments, full surgical teams, complete diagnostic imaging. But what happens when you don't have those things? A resident raised her hand. Second year, ambitious. We adapt to available resources. You improvise, Maya corrected. Adaptation implies you have time to think. In combat trauma, you have seconds. Your hands move before your brain catches up. That's what we're teaching you. She activated the screen behind her. Video footage appeared. A surgical tent. Chaos. A patient on a table with injuries that looked incompatible with life. This is what field surgery looks like. No sterile OR, no specialized equipment. Just you, your hands, and a patient who will die if you hesitate. The residents watched in silence. The video showed hands moving with impossible speed, clamping, suturing, controlling bleeding that should have been uncontrollable. "Those are your hands," one resident said quietly. Fallujah, 6 years ago. The patient had a penetrating chest wound from an IED. No CT scan, no X-ray, just physical exam and experience. Did he survive? Maya touched her right forearm, where the coordinates were hidden under her sleeve. "He's a teacher in Michigan now. 3 kids. Sends me a card every year." She moved to the simulation mannequin at the center of the room. "Today, you'll practice thoracotomy under field conditions. Limited light, no imaging, background noise to simulate combat environments. You'll work in pairs. You have 8 minutes from incision to stabilization." A male resident in the back spoke up. 8 minutes is impossible. It's necessary. In the field, that's all you get." Maya met his eyes. "What's your name?" "David Park. 3rd year. Prior military experience." "No, ma'am. Don't call me ma'am. I work for a living now." She smiled slightly at the old military joke. "David, you'll go first. Partner with someone." He chose the ambitious 2nd year. They approached the mannequin nervously. "Begin," Maya said. They were too slow, too careful, treating the simulation like it was a real patient in a real OR, where mistakes meant lawsuits instead of death. Maya let them work for 3 minutes. Then, "Stop. Your patient just died." David looked up. "We were following protocol. Protocol is for optimal conditions. This isn't optimal. Try again. Faster." They restarted. Better this time, more decisive, but still not fast enough. Maya stepped in. "Watch." Her hands moved over the mannequin, demonstrating the incision angle, the speed of retraction, the economy of motion that came from doing something 100 times when lives actually depended on it. "See? No wasted movement. Every action has purpose. You're not thinking about the next step because you've drilled it so many times your hands know what to do." She stepped back. Again. They tried a 3rd time. Faster. "Right now, more confident. 6 minutes 40 seconds. Better. Still too slow, but better. Keep practicing." The next pair stepped up, then the next. Maya watched each attempt, correcting, demonstrating, pushing them past their comfort zones. An hour later, the residents were exhausted but improving. The door opened. Dr. Vance entered, followed by 2 people in military uniform. Maya recognized one of them. Colonel Hendricks. "Dr. Reeves, sorry to interrupt, but we have visitors." Hendricks approached. "Major Reeves." "Dr. Reeves," Maya corrected automatically. "Of course, we have a situation. 3 casualties incoming to Walter Reed. Blast trauma from an incident overseas. Complex fragmentation patterns. They're requesting your consultation." Maya looked at her residents. At the half-finished training session. At the work she'd committed to here. "When?" 2 hours. We can have a helicopter here in 20 minutes. Maya turned to the residents. "Class dismissed. Review the techniques we covered. Practice on your own time. We'll resume tomorrow." David Park raised his hand. "Dr. Reeves, can we observe the consultation? It's at a military facility." "But you're teaching us combat trauma. Wouldn't seeing real cases help?" Maya looked at Vance. He nodded slightly. "All right, 2 of you can come. David, you're one. Who else?" The ambitious 2nd year raised her hand. "Jessica Torres. I'll go." "Fine, but you observes only. No questions during procedures. Clear?" "Clear." 20 minutes later, they were airborne. The resident sat wide-eyed in the helicopter, trying not to look nervous. Maya reviewed case files on a tablet. 3 patients, all blast trauma. 2 stable but complex. 1 critical. The critical case looked familiar. Fragmentation pattern, similar to what she'd seen in the field hospital 4 months ago. They landed at Walter Reed. Naya led her residents through corridors to the surgical wing. A team was already prepped and waiting. The lead surgeon was older, experienced. He nodded to Maya. "Major Reeves, thank you for coming." "Dr. Reeves, and you're welcome." She reviewed the imaging, saw what she'd suspected. Complex fragmentation with cardiac involvement. The kind of case that required techniques most civilian surgeons had never learned. "I'll take primary on the critical case. Your team can assist and observe." She scrubbed in. Her residents watched from the observation gallery above. The surgery took 90 minutes. Maya worked with the focused intensity her residents had seen in training, but now it was real. Real blood, real life hanging in the balance. She extracted 7 fragments, repaired a lacerated pulmonary artery, stabilized cardiac rhythm. When she stepped back, the patient was alive and stable. The lead surgeon stared at her. That was remarkable. That was necessary. Afterward, in the observation gallery, David and Jessica were silent. Finally, David spoke. That's what you've been trying to teach us. Yes. The speed, the certainty. It's not just technique, it's mindset. Maya nodded. In combat trauma, hesitation kills. You act decisively, or people die. That's what I need you to understand. Not just the physical skills, but the mental approach. Jessica was reviewing notes she'd taken. The way you controlled the pulmonary artery bleeding, that's not in any textbook. Because I invented it, in Baghdad, when a soldier was bleeding out and textbook methods weren't fast enough. Maya looked at both of them. That's the real lesson. Sometimes you have to invent solutions in real time. Trust your training, but don't be limited by it. They flew back to Metropolitan General in the evening. The city was lit up below them, golden in the sunset. Maya's phone buzzed. A text message. Marcus Delgado, the construction worker she'd saved 4 months ago. A photo attached. Him with his wife and baby daughter. The message read, "She's 2 months old. Named her Maya. Thank you for giving me the chance to meet her." Maya stared at the photo. At the baby. At the life that existed, because she'd refused to follow protocol when protocol wasn't enough. She touched her right forearm. The 13th set of coordinates was there now. Fresh ink. The forward operating base where she'd saved the CIA officer. Where she'd stopped running from who she was. The helicopter landed. Maya and her residents walked back into the hospital together. Vance met them in the corridor. How did it go? Successfully. The patient is stable. Good. Because. We have another situation. Department of Defense contacted me. They want to expand your training program nationally. 6 other Level 1 trauma centers are interested in implementing your protocols. Maya stopped walking. 6? They've been reviewing survival statistics from our ER since you started. Trauma survival rate is up 34%. Complex case success rate, up 41%. The military wants to know if civilian medicine can adopt combat trauma techniques system-wide. That's a big project. That's a revolution. Vance handed her a folder. Proposal for a national training program. You'd design the curriculum. Train instructors at major trauma centers. Establish protocols. Your name would be on every manual. Maya opened the folder, scanned the proposal, saw her techniques, her innovations, her experience distilled into teachable format. This would take years. You have time, unless you're planning on disappearing again. She looked up at him. No, I'm not disappearing. Then what do you say? Maya thought about the residents learning in her simulation lab. About Marcus Delgado's daughter. About soldiers and civilians and everyone in between who might benefit from techniques learned in the worst places on Earth. I say yes, but I have conditions. Of course you do. The program trains both military and civilian surgeons together. No separation. Everyone learns the same techniques. Agreed. What else? We establish a scholarship fund for medical students from underserved communities. People who might not otherwise had access to this training. Vance smiled. Done. Anything else? Maya looked at David and Jessica, still standing nearby listening. Yeah. My residents get priority access to the training program. They's earned it. Agreed. A trauma alert sounded overhead. Multiple casualties. Mass casualty incident. The residents tensed. Maya didn't. That's us, she said. They moved together toward the ER. Vance fell in step beside Maya. You know, he said quietly, 4 months ago I almost had you removed from this hospital. I remember. I'm glad I didn't. So am I. The ER doors opened. Chaos inside. Paramedics wheeling in patients. Nurses calling out vitals. The organized pandemonium of emergency medicine. Maya surveyed the scene, saw the injuries, cataloged priorities. Her mind shifted into triage mode automatically. Okoye was there, bringing in a patient. He saw Maya and nodded. She nodded back. Dr. Chen was assigning cases. He saw Maya and paused. Dr. Reeds, we have 3 critical. I could use your expertise. Which one do you want me to take? Your choice. Maya moved through the ER, assessed each patient quickly, chose the one everyone else had written off. The one with injuries that looked incompatible with survival. I'll take this one. Chen looked at the patient. Are you sure? I'm sure. She began working. Her residents watched, learning. Remember when Dr. Vance called her incompetent? When he threatened to remove her from his hospital? When those hands he said weren't normal were about to save another life? He was right. Those hands weren't normal. They were trained in combat, steadied by experience, guided by a simple truth that Maya had finally accepted. Some skills are too important to hide. Some people are exactly who we need them to be. Maya's hands moved with practiced precision, steady, certain, exactly where they needed to be, exactly where she needed to be. The monitor beeped, heart rate stabilizing, pressure climbing, life continuing because someone refused to give up. Someone who'd learned that lesson in the worst places on Earth and brought it home to save lives here. The patient would live. Maya stepped back, pulled off her gloves. David was watching from the doorway. How did you know he'd make it? I didn't, but I knew I had to try. Even when everyone else said it was impossible. Especially then. She walked past him toward the scrub room. Behind her, the ER continued its rhythm. Organized chaos. Life and death decided in moments. This was her place now. Not running from her past. Not hiding her skills. Just being exactly who she'd always been. A surgeon who refused to let impossible be the final answer. What would you do if you had to choose between hiding your past and saving a life? Tell us in the comments, and subscribe for more stories of courage under pressure. Because sometimes, the person everyone underestimates is exactly the person everyone needs.